Hello, welcome to July's Dear Advisor. I am Carrie Talamanta, Senior Advisor, and this month's topic is Adventure Awaits Traveling with Your Puppy. Dear Advisor, I will be flying with my puppy for the first time this summer. What are some tips and tricks to make our trip smooth and successful? It's a great question, and whether by plane or by car, most puppy raisers will travel to some extent with their puppies. We want to make sure that you feel prepared and comfortable with traveling with a puppy in training in tow. So, we're going to discuss some flying basics. I did an interview with John Sperling. He is the club leader for Remote East and also a puppy raiser who lives in Connecticut. Some of the questions I asked or that we discussed are what are some first steps in preparing to take a plane trip with your puppy? Which airlines are easiest for our racers to fly with? What are some basic supplies you might pack in your carry-on when flying? And are there any extra steps that you take when lining up a flight with a puppy? Okay, we're joined here today by John Sperling. He is our club leader for the Remote East Club. And I asked him to join us today because since they do have the remote raisers, a lot of them do have to fly quite frequently. So he has a lot of knowledge about how to handle flying with puppies. How are you today, John?
Doing great. Great.
Good. All right. Let me just pull this up. Okay. So, have a few questions for you today about flying. First one, I would just a general one when flying with a puppy in training, what would be some first steps in preparing for a trip?
The first step would probably be have a plan because things are going to happen. Um,
Mm,
Even though we try to plan the best we can, the first thing you want to do is contact your club leader because each airlines is different of how they want the dogs through reservations and what you have to do. The American Airlines, which we have a partnership with,
mhm.
their directions are on the Facebook Puppy Raiser page. If you fly on Allegiant, which is another airlines that we use a lot, it is not right now on the Puppy Raiser manual, but I am working on that to put that in there. So
Yes.
first thing, call your club leader, let her know you want to take a flight. They can direct you on the procedure. Um, when you make your reservations, the airlines do not want you to mark down that you have a service dog because there's always a drop down box if you need help.
Mhm.
They don't, they're going to do that manually through their
Okay.
policy. So with American, you're going to make your reservations like you normally do. One of the keys is if you have layovers, because there's very few direct flights. I found this out the hard way. You do not want a 30-minute layover, especially in Charlotte, because
Yes.
they start boarding the planes 30 minutes early, and if you're delayed, you're going to be stuck. So I
Yes.
try to shoot for like a 2 hour layover because you always board an hour and a half early. So that gives you time to get off the plane, take a break for yourself, for the puppy, get something to eat, walk the dog around, and then get back on the plane. So you make sure when you're getting layovers, you check that how quick the layover is. Um, Sometimes the airlines are going to start sending you stuff that says DOT forms.
Mhm.
That is not for us. Those are forms
Right.
for service dogs.
Fully
So
trained.
fully trained because what they're saying is that you have a disability and the dog is trained to help your disability. Now with Americans, sometimes after you call them, which is part of the procedure, you'll get an email from them saying, "Hey, your service dog is on the itinerary," and it starts talking about DOT. You can just ignore that. But
Okay.
if you use any other airlines and they start saying you have to fill out DOT forms, that's a federal form, and our dogs do not fly under that. We have no rights to fly.
Hmm.
The rights that we have are through the airlines. So we have
Yes.
a partnership with American. Allegiant is very good with our puppies. We have a lot of dogs that fly Allegiant. Most people don't use this, but Air Alaska is very good for puppies
Okay.
too.
Okay.
We've had dogs fly out west, and they fly out of Orlando. So Air Alaska is very good. We've had puppies fly on United.
Hmm.
We've had a few puppies fly on Delta. But when I tell the puppy raisers, when you fly anything but American and Allegiance, which we use a lot, you're taking a gamble
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
because you might have the person you talk to, Betty, says, "Sure, you could bring your puppy on," and then you
Right.
get to the gate and Lou goes, "What are you doing here?"
Right.
But we've had people fly on United with good luck. I've known people to fly on some of the low cost airlines
Hmm.
that say no service dogs in training on their website, and they've flown anyway, and they've had good luck.
Okay. But
I'm
it's
not a
luck.
gambler.
It's luck. Yeah.
It's luck, and I don't want to be stuck in Philly or DC with a puppy
Right.
and you miss the plane. So I stick with an American. I don't have Allegiance where I fly out of, but I know a lot of people fly out Allegiance, which is really good. But you have to
Yes.
follow the procedures. So make sure you follow the procedures. I've had a few puppy raisers don't follow the procedures.
Hmm.
The letter that you get from Dogs Inc. is not going to get you on the plane.
Right.
So with Allegiance, you have to email Allegiance and tell them you're coming.
Okay.
So, and hopefully that would be
Okay.
in the puppy raiser. So every airlines is different.
Yeah. What are
Um,
some, are there any in particular that you have seen any issues with, any particular airlines that you have had any razors, you know,
all of
missed
them,
planes, all of them?
all of them.
Yeah, it
But
all is kind of a gamble, yeah.
it is sometimes it's the we had a puppy raiser not contact Allegiant. He thought the letter from Dogs Inc. was enough, and
Okay.
they wouldn't let him board. I was flying in a couple of weeks ago, and another puppy raiser was flying in from Chicago with American, and they got there, and our letter says we're Dogs Inc. And look, and they knew not what we're talking about. So she called me up frantically. And I said, well,
Mhm.
talk to the supervisor. They look through their American Airlines website, which talks about us, and it says yes, but it says Southeastern Guide Dogs.
Oh, right.
Your letter says Dogs Inc. So we went back and forth, and then we got the letter changed saying Southeastern Guide Dogs doing business as Dogs Inc.
Okay.
So
Yes.
things like that happen. A lot of the ticket agents don't know about
Right.
this because we have raisers, let's say Northern Vermont. They don't have one puppy raiser there,
Hmm.
and they're the first time flying. They don't see it all the time. Tampa is probably used to our dogs flying because they see them all the
Right.
time. So you just have to be prepared. That's the
Yeah.
main thing.
Yeah. What are some supplies that you would pack in your carry-on for your puppy?
You want to have a cleanup kit, definitely. The pee pads are really good for cleaning up.
Hmm.
You want to have baby wipes, maybe some paper towels, some hand sanitizer for you. You want to have enough dog food in case you do have a layover.
Right.
Obviously, have poop bags. You want to have some snacks for you in case you have a layover, especially if it's the
Hmm.
last flight of the night and something happens. You might be stuck overnight in an airport, sleeping
Yes.
in the terminal. So you want to have enough snacks for you, um, and toys for the dogs.
Yeah, like a chew
I
bone or something like that that they,
I've flown with 8-week-old puppies and they do great because they're tired
yes.
and they sleep a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, I The only problem I ever heard of with a dog flying was a dog who had some GI issues on the
Mm,
plane, and that's it. But
yeah.
usually they sleep very well. Um, Going back to American, when you call them, I always ask for bulkhead seating
Hmm.
because they'll give it to you for free. It gives you a little more room. It's not a lot of room, but when you have a 16-month-old dog going back, that difference can be a lot. The little puppies, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. How about, are there any extra steps? I guess we've talked a little bit about that. Is
Yeah,
calling, contacting the airlines in
yeah,
advance and get those
yeah,
letters. Do you ever have suggest that people have like a plan in case they can't get on the plane?
yeah,
Have somebody come pick up the puppy if it's like they're going on vacation, obviously, or something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, if you can have a plan in place in case your puppy gets denied, which is rare, but
Hmm.
it does, and a lot of times the people just went home
Yeah.
and they had to rebook it and do the proper procedure. Um,
Right.
that's the most thing is have a plan.
I guess then
Um,
it would probably be good to buy the type of ticket where you can get it sort of the credit back or whatever in case you do have to rebook it versus a non-refundable ticket. I'm sure that would be the best plan,
yeah,
even
it's
though they're
always
more
there.
expensive.
Yeah, it's a gamble. You're taking a
Yes.
gamble,
Yeah.
so it depends if you're a gambler or not.
Yeah, definitely. Any other tips about traveling with a puppy
Yep.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we hit on. You got to get a letter from the school too. There is a
Mm,
form you fill
right,
out.
yes. Yes.
They say they want 5 to 7 days, but Allie's pretty quick on getting them. the day before. If you have an emergency or a last minute flight, you can always contact your club leader to get a hold of your advisor, to get a hold of Allie or someone from the school to get that letter to you. It depends on the ticket person, if they read it or not. Some of them read every word of it.
Right.
Other people say, hey, you got a cute puppy. We don't need it. Make sure you carry their shot records,
Hmm.
their rabies certificates if they have it. Um, what I do too is if you have a chance, if you're going back to IFT, go to the airport before and walk your dog around the airport
Yes,
so they're
yes.
not nervous. You can also go to a courthouse and practice going through security
Oh, good idea. Good idea.
through TSA.
Hmm.
Talking about TSA, every agent does things differently with the dog, so you just have to kind of follow their suggestions. The only thing is, do not take all the equipment off the dog.
Hmm.
They can't make you take the leash and collar off.
Yes.
You see a lot of videos on Instagram with service dog people showing their dogs in a sit stay with no equipment on and how great they are. But the TSA cannot make you do that. If they make you do that, just ask to speak to a supervisor.
Hmm.
Um, if I have a little puppy, I usually walk with carry him through it. They're going to pat the dog down and his coat. If
Hmm.
I have an older dog, I do a sit stay and hold on to the leash and just go through the metal detector. If I can't carry the puppy, I'll have someone behind me. Hey, can you hold the dog? Most people
Yes.
are not going to say no to hold a 8-week-old
Right.
yellow lab puppy. Um, your hands are gonna be swabbed when you go through TSA, so be prepared for that.
Hmm.
Um, um, that's pretty much it for preparing before. Also, I like to, depending on your flight, not restrict their water or food, but you kind of keep an eye on their schedule.
Hmm.
Um, the older dogs do not like the pet relief areas. The younger ones don't care.
Right. Right.
So what I do is I will stop at a hotel outside the airport where there's
Oh,
grass and try to give them a busy break. There's nothing like
yes.
your dog taking a nice big busy before you get on a plane.
Right.
The little guys, they'll go anywhere. What I also found too is because the older dogs don't like the pet relief areas, I go into the companion bathroom
Hmm.
because you can close. It's a door with a lock, and
Hmm.
they usually have a drain on the floor. So I'll just walk them around and tell them to go busy. And I've had my older dog just pee out of the drain, and then
Yeah,
you
and
can
then just clean
then
it up.
and just have paper towels and clean it
All
up.
right.
With the little dogs, I'll just walk them in an empty gate and tell them to go busy and just clean it up.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it's um, it's just every airport's different. Some airports have great pet relief areas. Some of them
Yeah,
not so
some of them
not
don't
so
have really anything hardly,
right
or you have to go
right
back out through security,
right
which can take a lot of time or doesn't help
yeah
if you have a layover, especially
right
a short one like you said. That's
yeah
another reason to build in a really long layover is so if you need to, you could always exit security and then come back through
right.
again.
I I I haven't done that, but I've heard if you go to TSA and tell them you have a service dog and trainer take out. Sometimes if they're not busy, they'll follow you.
Okay.
So you don't have to go back through security, but I don't know
Okay.
if it's going to depend on each TSA.
Yes.
I also check, if I'm not familiar with the airport, I'll check on the map where the pet relief areas are.
Oh, that's a good
Uh,
idea. Yeah.
because sometimes on the map it looks easy, but when you get there, it's like a 30-minute walk
Right. Right.
for a pet relief area.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I definitely appreciate all of the
Um,
information and the real, I know you have a lot of experience with it. You have any other notes?
yeah, when you
Yeah, go ahead.
when you what I do is when I get to the like with American, you have to get your boarding pass at the ticket
Okay.
gate, and then when you get to the gate where you board, I always ask for the pre-board
Mm,
because they always give you the last boarding number.
okay.
That way I could get on the plane first with the puppy, get them situated. If you have carry-on, your carry-on is going to be right above you. Because especially America now is clamping down on people boarding early. They're going strictly
Mm.
by the numbers. So if you just go up there and ask to pre-board, they'll usually let you pre-board. Um,
Okay, that's good.
yeah, and that way you
Good
can
to know.
get the dog settled in. We've done some practicing in our remote East Club Zoom classes on setting
Mhm.
up like chairs. So practice
Yes.
getting the dogs in. If they can back up, that makes it easier to get them in. Um, with the bigger dogs, the footprints are so small now that sometimes they're going to encroach on someone else. I
Yep.
just tell them if they get in your way, let me know. American's been very good lately. The last couple of flights, they and have no one sitting next to me.
Hmm.
Um, uh, most
This is
people don't mind, but I mean, there's no way you can. It's hard because some of the bulkheads have no underseating or
right.
overs, so they have, and you can't put your foot down and a dog curl up in that tiny little spot.
Yeah, I
So
definitely say this is one reason why we have puppies ride in the front passenger side, practice with somebody
yeah,
else riding with them so that they get used to being curled up in a small, tight space.
yeah,
Uh, Car footwell probably has more room than um, a plain foot area for most seats, but it does help to get the
yeah,
dog acclimated a little bit to curling up in a
right,
small space
right.
for
And
sure.
I also bring like a blanket or a towel,
Hmm.
especially for the little guys, just in case they do have an accident. It just goes on that. The
Right,
little guys, I always carry them on the plane. I don't walk them off, especially after they've been sleeping, because most of the time they're going to go busy. So
right.
little guys, I can carry off the plane.
Yes, yes. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you
Sure,
so much and really appreciate it and definitely provided a lot of tips, even some things I didn't have written down yet.
sure.
So,
Okay, very good. Very
all
good.
right,
I learned,
thank
I
you.
learned, I learned too from my puppy raisers, having,
Yes.
some mistakes, and then we start taking notes and learning what works.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
So, we're going to talk about some general airport tips. And the first thing we want to discuss is puppies' rights when flying. Again, some of these were covered or discussed in our interview with John, but I just want to reiterate some of these points. First of all, service and guide dog puppies in training are actually not covered under any specific laws when it comes to flying. The FAA has different rules than the ADA or your state laws and only covers actual fully trained service or guide dogs. Not all airline employees are created equal. And by that, I mean some will pass you through, no problem. You'll get on your flight and have a completely pleasant experience, and some could give you a hard time. We did discuss this with John a little bit about how sometimes it is kind of gambling with your luck sometimes when you fly because you're not sure who is and isn't going to give you a hard time. Flying one of our partner airlines like American or Allegiant will definitely help alleviate some of those issues. And your puppy will likely have to fit completely under the seat in front of you. So do not expect the puppy to be allowed to spread out into the aisle. For example, the flight attendants do need a path to walk very quickly and easily. They have their carts coming through. People need to walk to the bathroom. So your puppy will be expected to, fit in that little area right where your feet normally go. This is why it's really good to practice and make sure that your dog does ride in the front floor passenger side of your car with somebody sometimes because this sort of mimics that small foot area. We're going to discuss some Dogs Inc. policies for flying. First of all, you must speak to your club leader in advance of flying. Our club leaders are tasked with knowing where our dogs are at all times in case of the event of an emergency. Some specific things you'll need to talk about, though, are giving the dates when you will be leaving and when you will be returning, and also where you will be flying to. At this time, you should also discuss if the place that you're flying is appropriate for your puppy. Sometimes people want to go on certain types of vacations, and maybe we decide, hey, this particular puppy would do better to just stay with a sitter and let you enjoy your vacation. Then they might ask you if you've looked at state laws for the destination so you are aware of their service puppies and training coverage. Please understand that um, the laws we have in Florida that cover our puppies in training are not consistently the same state to state. So you do need to look those uh, laws up. How will you handle crating at the destination? Now, if you're going to see friends or family, maybe they have a crate for you. But if you're going to a hotel, how are you going to handle the hotel with the puppy? So, for example, you won't have a crate. And do you plan on leaving the puppy for extended amounts of time for sightseeing or events? Because if you do, and you have to leave your puppy in the hotel for that, you may get some pushback from the hotel. So, if yes, if you will be planning on leaving your puppy for extended amount of time, be ready to discuss with the club leader regarding how you're going to plan to handle this. Um, Dogs Inc. puppies are not allowed to fly in cargo at any point. Again, if you are going to a destination that requires that, then you need to discuss with the club leader because it's probably not the most appropriate location for your puppy. And Dogs Inc. puppies are not allowed to fly internationally. Dogs Inc. does have some resources for traveling. We did discuss a little bit of this again with John in his interview. To find our resources for travel, you're going to go to Puppy Raising Resources and click on the link Traveling with Your Puppy. On there, you are going to see something with one of our two sort of partner airlines, which is American Airlines and their pilot program. If you click on American Airlines pilot program, the link will give you specific directions on how to work with American's pilot program, which will provide a letter from American for your puppy's travel and the contact info if you receive any pushback from American employees. We also have a similar program with Allegiant, but you will need to contact your club leader and advisor as that one is not currently on our website. On this page, this resources page for traveling, you can also put in a request for a letter that you might be able to use for help with access at places like other airlines or hotels. However, please make sure you request any letters well in advance, at least 1 to 2 weeks. That's not just with the travel letters, but also with the American Airlines pilot program. So, caring for a puppy during our flight does require that you obviously pack some things in advance. Again, we did discuss some of this in our interview with John. Some general supplies. Some of these are obvious, some not as obvious. Poop bags, potty pads for cleaning up accidents. So, getting some of those um, pads for potty training that you can usually get at the Dollar Tree or a pet store. Having a couple of those folded up, those are very absorbent and they will quickly help clean up any urinary accidents. Your treat pouch with treats, a small bag of dog food. Again, you never know if there's going to be a delay in your flight and you're not going to be able to get to your checked baggage. So you might need to have a small bag of dog food to feed your dog. Your puppy vest, a collapsible bowl, travel size Lysol wipes, always good, not only for helping clean up any accidents, also wiping down, any areas your puppy might be getting ready to lay on that you're a little bit uncertain about. You could bring baby wipes if you need to be ready to also wipe off your puppy for any reason. An empty water bottle, as we all know, TSA does not allow liquids through, but bring an empty water bottle so that as soon as you get through, you can go ahead and fill that up and have water ready for your puppy. Some sort of toy, like a quiet toy, like a Nylabone or Benebone, a small blanket, and a cheap leash with the metal ring cut off, which we're going to discuss later, and that's more for the security checks. So, feeding and watering the day of your flight, you might want to adjust how you're going to give your puppy both food and water. Usually, we recommend giving a small amount of food in the morning so that this makes sure that they're not going to be too hungry because that can cause them to be nauseous, but also they don't have a lot of food in them so that, they don't have to need a lot of busy breaks. We recommend anywhere from a quarter to a half cup of breakfast and a small amount of water. Again, you're going to bring that empty water bottle with you, fill it up, and you can give your dog some small amounts of water throughout the day while you're flying. Busying puppy. So best practice is to try to make sure your puppy can busy on cement beforehand. You're gonna have a lot more access to cement at like maybe outside of like the where you people drop, people off, that sort of thing. You want to try to have your puppy busy outside when you get to the airport, busy outside before going to check in. And then you're going to wait until you have to do security to let your puppy have one more busy break outside. So maybe you go, you check in your bags, you get everything ready, but you still have, 2.5 hours until your flight. And maybe you decide, well, security doesn't look too bad. I'm going to go in, at the 2 hour mark or so through security. So before you do that, give your puppy one more busy break outside. Once you are through security, there is no guarantee that there will be a busy area or that your puppy will use it. Many airports do have a service dog relief area now, but a lot of puppies or dogs don't prefer to use it. So just be prepared that you may or may not be able to find it easily, and your puppy may or may not want to use it. So there are a few things that we can do to help prepare our puppies for flying. Um, First thing is making sure that you set up an emergency sitter or someone to come and pick up your puppy if you are not using an airline that works with us. There have been situations where a dog has been denied onto the flight, and the raiser has had to make a decision about how to handle that. Sometimes people will have an emergency sitter to come pick up the dog if it is a flight that they cannot reschedule. If you're close to the airport, you can do some outings there before your actual flight, so your puppy's at least familiar with being in the airport. You can take that time to look for busy areas outside. You can walk around the check-in area, let them experience the smells and some of the sounds of, the airport. You can go over back, near the like where the luggage comes in, and let them experience people walking around with luggage trailing behind them because that's also something that's very different for them. You can travel on public transportation beforehand. Most people will park in places where they might need to take a bus to get to the airport. And so this helps with making sure your puppy is ready for that. Those people who fly out of Tampa, you know that there is a kind of almost monorail. So doing something like that mimics like a monorail, whether it's Disney transportation and doing that if you're in Florida or other sort of buses and trains in your area. You can practice rolling luggage behind you with a puppy at home. You might have to do that. Probably might have to do that even before you check all the way through. You might have luggage that you're going to be checking in, or maybe you have a carry-on that is going to be rolled behind you. And then you can practice going through TSA. So you can do it at home, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But also, if you do have a courthouse nearby, you can usually visit them to practice going through an actual metal detector. And the metal detector you can practice at home. You can use like a door frame. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have your dog sit and stay, and you're going to make a long leash. And you're going to walk through and recall them through. And then also being patted down by TSA is going to probably pat your dog down a few times. So we have a couple videos of how you can practice this at home. All right, so I have two videos of me practicing going through a metal detector. So the door frame is going to be my metal detector, and I have my dog Eve, and she is going to be doing sit and stays and recalls through the door. Typically, your TSA, they are going to have you do this. We'll talk about some different things regarding that, but you shouldn't have to take off your leash and collar, and even technically, you shouldn't have to take off your vest. But in order to make it to where you don't need a pat down, you're going to go through first and then your dog will go through. So we're going to watch this video here. All right, so we have Eve sit and stay. I'm going to go ahead and make a long leash. If you have a leash that gets long, you can do that. So it gives you more time to go through. And then we'll do recall with her. All right, again, sit. You want them to sit, a good foot or two away from the door frame. And then we'll pull her through there and get her to heel. And I do like to try to remember to continue to, shorten that leash up, even if I'm doing a lot of repetitions of these. It just helps build the duration for your dog to know that they need to stay still while you're extending that leash. Now, when your puppy does go through that metal detector, a lot of times their collar or leash will set off the metal detector, and or if your puppy still has their coat on or what have you, the TSA are going to request to do a pat down of your dog. Now, getting patted down is a lot different than most people greetings. I have been to many an airport where the TSA agent is actually a little scared of dogs, so so they act very jerky and unsure when they're patting the dog down. So I always recommend that if you're going to be flying, you get your dog used to being patted down. I'm going to do it myself here, but you could also have your dog stand still and have another family member do this. So I'm going to do some just gentle, more assured ones like there that, I'm not necessarily a TSA that's scared of her. I'm actually really touching her pretty well. And then I'm going to act, and then you do want to grab around the collar too, because they might run their hand around the collar. And then I'm going to be like the scared TSA that's going to barely touch your dog, and your puppy is probably going to wonder why they're greeting them that way. So again, just doing that sort of different types of pat downs really can help prepare your dog for their visit to the airport. Now that we're talking about TSA, what do we do if your TSA agent is uneducated about procedures with service dogs? Technically, your puppy should not have to remove any of their equipment, collar, leash, puppy vest, etc. However, um, there are a few things that we can do to sort of help that along if you have somebody who is really pushing you to do that. The first is if you don't really want to, escalate it, you can have a cheap leash with no metal, so you can create a slip leash to get through security. And what do we mean by that is you can go to the Dollar Tree, you can go to your local vet, and the local vets often have those little slip leashes, or the Dollar Tree you can just get a cheap leash, and you're just going to cut the metal part off, and then you would just like loop the end through the handle, and it will create a quick little slip leash that you can put over your dog and show the security it has no metal on it. Be cooperative and patient with security. You can ask for a supervisor to see if they can help with the process. So if you are not, you know, pressed for time, or you are like totally comfortable with this, you could always ask if they could get a supervisor, because they're not supposed to ask you to remove anything from the dog. You can also try to remember the names of the agents in airports and report it back to your club leader or advisor later. Not everyone is going to fly to their vacation. They might drive, and generally not too difficult to figure out how to do most things with driving, but we do have a few things we wanted to go over. First of all, our dog sync policies for traveling via car. Now, a lot of this is going to be very similar to flying. First of all, you must speak to your club leader in advance of driving. Again, they need to know where your dog is and in the event of an emergency. They need to know dates, when you will be leaving and when you'll be returning, and where you will be driving to. At this time, again, you should discuss if the place you're traveling to is appropriate for a puppy. And have you looked at state laws for the destination so that you're aware of their training, of their service puppies and training coverage? Um, Again, how will you handle crating at a destination? Now, if you're driving, there's a good chance you might be able to bring your crate along with you, and this isn't really a big deal. How will you handle a hotel though with your puppy? If you plan to leave to go do sort of events that are not appropriate for the puppy and expect to leave the puppy in their crate in a hotel for several hours, we might need to discuss this, because if your puppy is a barker or something like that, the hotel is not going to allow that. Our puppies are not allowed to travel internationally. Obviously, driving, you'd be looking at either Canada or Mexico, but they are not allowed to be traveling internationally. They're not allowed to be left in the cars during drives either. So you need to make a plan to always take them in with you whenever you stop for a bathroom break if you're the only person that's driving. Puppies who are not fully vaccinated should have extra precautions. You want to make sure, for example, that busy locations are not places where pet dogs normally potty or walk around. So, for example, instead of pulling off the big rest stop on the highway, which I know is tends to be the easiest thing, but there are lots of dogs that are there using the bathroom. Instead, you're gonna maybe go up another mile or two and choose an exit that has some restaurants like a McDonald's or something like that and use their grassy area to have your puppy busy. You could always use cement too if your puppy will busy on the cement. We're going to talk about some general supplies for the drive specifically, not necessarily for your trip, but specifically for the drive. So you want to make sure you have your tie down and your puppy is on a tie down during that drive. You obviously want to have your leash, but also a long line. The long line's great for exploration, um, or downtime whenever you stop to busy. Busy bags. Again, you may not choose a location that a lot of dogs are at, so it may not have access to busy bags for you. So make sure you have your own, a bowl and some water, a small baggie of dog food. Again, you never know, if, for example, when I go all the way to my mom's in Virginia, we order a bag of dog food to be delivered. However, we always bring a small bag of dog food for our pet dogs because you never know if something's going to happen to your car and you're going to get stranded overnight while your car is repaired or something like that. So make sure you have at least a small bag of dog food with you, and then your puppy vest and a blanket. And just some extra travel tips. When you're driving, you want to take busy breaks every 2 to 3 hours at a minimum. Your puppy is going to be kind of cramped up in the car and they'll want to stretch their legs for a little bit, just like you. And then when you're doing those big busy breaks, go ahead and take 5 to 10 minutes at least of additional walking around. Again, like I said, you could bring a long line if your puppy is able to be easily controlled with that, and you can let them kind of have a little bit of time to do an exploring walk. If possible, you can take a known bed for car rides or a small blanket for the airlines from home to make your puppy more comfortable in the new environment. So they'll have that scent even while they're traveling. They'll have the scent of their home while they're acclimated to all these new environments. With these tips and steps, we're sure you can have smooth travel with a puppy in tow. If you have any additional questions about traveling with your puppy, please feel free to reach out to your club leader or advisor. We wish you safe travels with your puppy.